Hey, welcome back to Vox Terra. Today, I want to share with you a headline news article that I think everybody should know about. And that headline is this, from The Scientist. Long-delayed EPA report details dire nature of climate disaster. The Climate Change Indicator site was not updated during Donald Trump's presidency. Now, by climate, and this is from The Scientist, May 13th, 2021. Now, the Climate Change Indicator site, they're talking about the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and then it has a site that is called Climate Change Indicators, which is super useful to anybody concerned about climate change or the environment in general, how yes, it really is changing, so you can connect those dots that the media really isn't doing for you. Now, first of all, everybody should know this because A, it shows the nature of Trump's presidency, the true nature of Trump's presidency. Now, hey, look, if you consider yourself conservative, I understand. In fact, I'm not trying to turn you against being conservative. What I'm trying to do is show how the conservative movement has in large part been hijacked by what I call the reckless elements of the business community, chief among them fossil fuels, petrochemicals. Yet our media, even the so-called liberal media, rarely really covers it that way. Why? Because they too are connected to those industries. If they did, then I believe it'd be much easier for people, regardless of their identities, to come together for the long-term survival of our species. So again, first most important part is that Trump delayed this report. His administration delayed the report for 3 years. His administration also stopped those climate change indicators at the EPA website from being updated. And that followed a pattern of suppressing information, delaying information. And I firmly believe that was done to protect certain powerful business interests. So according to the articles I reviewed for you, which include articles from the Center for Environmental Journalism, Carbon Brief, Washington Post, BBC News Service, these EPA climate change indicators are put together by surveying a wide range of scientific, academic, and governmental information, which includes NOAA, the CDC, and then the report that was put out is what's called peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed. I want you to keep that term in your head, peer-reviewed. Because anybody with a PhD can say, oh, I'm a scientist and here's my opinion. But is their information, has it been peer-reviewed? We need to get back to some semblance of credible from non-credible. And always just remember your common sense take. You know, regardless of your politics, you can see regardless of your politics, just how much greenhouse gases and carcinogens and toxic chemicals our consumer capitalism is just pumping this environment full of. It has to have a price. Okay, so what are some of these climate change indicators that are so dire that the EPA just updated? Well, according to the articles I reviewed for you, first, coastal flooding is increasing. Listen to this statistic and commit it to memory. Floods are now 5 times more common in cities surveyed than in the 1950s. 5 times more common in the cities surveyed than they were in the 1950s. 5 times. Especially along the Atlantic and Gulf coasts. Well, why? Well, this hotter planet means hotter ocean. The water's expanded. There's melting ice also getting into the ocean. And then the reason why the Atlantic and the Gulf Coast in particular, well, check out my video about the slowing of the Atlantic Ocean currents and how that affects something called the Coriolis effect. Next indicator, Arctic ice is thinning. September 2020 saw the second smallest amount of Arctic sea ice ever recorded. Now, this shrinking sea ice isn't merely poor polar bears, isn't merely poor indigenous living up there. It's poor all of us, because that ice is a natural air conditioner for our planet, reflecting heat back off of the Earth. So now more heat is being absorbed, heating up the Arctic even more. So again, as I point out other videos, you have what's called a feedback loop where the Earth is now heating itself, going beyond our greenhouse gas emissions. Wildfire season. Wildfire season starts earlier and lasts longer. That's due to the drier conditions out west. As I've explained, this hotter planet, these hotter air masses, retain more moisture and just pull it out of the soil and hold on to it. When it rains, it pours, making a quick spurt of vegetation. Then dries again, and now you're wildfires. But not just is wildfire season longer, so too, amazingly, and everybody should know this, is pollen season. So think about these increases in allergies and asthmas. Well, that too is due to our heating planet. Why? Because according to one book I read, years ago, by the way, a higher atmospheric CO2 count creates conditions that for like ragweed to create more pollen. This one should be common sense. Heat waves. Heat waves are occurring 3 times more often than they were in the 1960s. So in addition to heat-related deaths, people are blasting their ACs more often, their air conditioners, which in turn is also contributing to more greenhouse gases. In fact, according to these articles, summertime air conditioning use or summertime electricity use in the United States has nearly doubled since 1973. Now there's solutions for air conditioning like geothermal heat pumps that I'll explore in future shows and I've explored for you in the past. This next one's a real yuck, and everybody should know it too. Incidences of Lyme's disease. Incidences of Lyme's disease have nearly doubled since 1991. Because many regions now are not getting cold in the winter like they used to, so those ticks have now expanded into regions where they didn't used to be able to thrive. And when I hear things like 1991, it's especially depressing because it was back in 1991 when I first heard scientists beginning to really ring the alarm bells about global warming, which is what it was called then, and that's the name they should have stuck with in my opinion, and I myself started moving my own environmental activism and concern from all the toxins we're pumping this planet full of to all the toxins and greenhouse gases we're pumping this planet full of. You see, prior to 1991, I really thought something would be done about it. Destruction of year-round permafrost in Alaska. So the destruction and the heating of the Alaskan regions and the Arctic regions is a big deal. So one thing that one of the articles cited was the destruction of permafrost is making it more difficult for the indigenous up there, the Native Americans up there, to live in their traditional lifestyles where they would bury meat in bury food or the permafrost to preserve it. So it's making their traditional lifestyles more difficult. And people talk about freedom all the time, taking freedom away. Well, really, living in those traditional lifestyles, that's the ultimate freedom and independence, and that's being robbed. But it's not just poor them and them losing their freedom to actually live off of the land. It's also that thawing permafrost is now releasing methane, which is another heat-trapping greenhouse gas. So again, you've got that loss of polar ice. We're losing the Earth's air conditioning system. You've got that thawing permafrost also adding to the heating. Those are called feedback loops. Regionally, if you live in the Great Lakes region, you might have noticed the lakes don't seem to freeze like they used to, and they don't. There's also a loss of Great Lake ice. 2020, the oceans reached their hottest year on record. Coral reef bleaching, ocean heat waves, and that contributes to all these other problems like the slowing down of the Atlantic Gulf Stream, the super fueling the strength of hurricanes and tropical storms. And worse and most depressing is that the article points out that climate change indicators seem to be speeding up now, much more than back in 2016. Why do I say that's depressing? Well, similar reason why I said I'm upset there's no action been taken since 1991, or little action. Because it was 2016 that put Donald Trump in office, who campaigned in the background, but not really highlighted in the media, on deregulating environmental protections and promoting more oil and gas industry. So I come back to the beginning. I'm not trying to change anybody away from being conservative. I myself share some conservative values. Rather, what I'm trying to do is show people how the conservative movement has been hijacked and bring people together for the long-term survival of our species, regardless of how one identifies oneself. So I hope you found this video useful and somewhat entertaining. And until next time, please make sure you're subscribed to my channel, you've clicked that notification bell, you comment, you like. And lastly, peace be with you.